Okay, now the next thing that jumps into my ear is the high end of the kick drum is very dynamic and it gets lost a lot of times in the mix, and just boosting the high end more and higher doesn't really do the trick. So, but what helps is parallel compression. So what I want to do is I put in EQ, a send effect to my kick drum. And of course it's over here instead of next to my kick drum. So let's put it there. Then I want to put a post fader. So this one has nothing to do with the input volume into this one. Okay, now why I put a post fader? Because perhaps throughout the song I want to automate the volume of the kick drum. But when I automate this volume, then also the input signal into my effect channel here would be automated if this send chain was pre-fader. Now, let's solo my kick high com FX channel. So this is just the normal kick drum sound now. Well, what I want to do is I want to compress the high end of the kick a whole lot. I almost want to limit it and then mix it into the original kick drum track. In this way, I get a bit more consistent and prominent high end for the kick drum, and it sticks out consistently. Now, you could do it by just putting a super hard high-pass filter, followed by a compressor then. But what I sometimes like to do is just boost the high end really high instead. And just filter out some low ends. Yeah, because somehow I personally like to keep a little bit of mids in there that can also come out a bit more prominently in the end. And now this will be followed by a compressor. For this one, I like to use the R comp. And now for this one, I like to keep a little bit of a tag time in there, just to give it this little hint of edginess and a bit more smack, this little hint of in your face. Okay, now let's try to mix it into our kick drum track. Perhaps I'm gonna try it differently after all, to see if this one works better with this kick drum. See, you just have to try out different procedures for different drums. Alrighty, something like this. And now the kick drum is still kind of dynamic. Okay, the way I did it now to fix all the problems I had with the peaks on the kick drum is for the limiting compressor, I used the Studio One compressor instead of the waves one because it has a look ahead function that really gives you a precise attack time, and it catches the high peaks that you don't want to have. And it doesn't have knee in here because I can set the knee however I want it. And the waves compressor I used here, the C1, does have a little bit of knee, and I don't want it. So I'll use this one, and I adjusted the compressor in here a little bit, gave it a bit more punch, and adjusted the EQ a little bit. See, and now the kick drum is pretty consistent. As you can see here in the compressor, I limited quite a bit. But it works out somehow. And now for a little extra, we can do some parallel compression to give the kick and the snare even a bit more smack without destroying the actual sound and the feel about it. For this one, I like to use the Native Instrument Supercharger because this one gives me an easy wet-dry mix, so I don't have to set up an extra FX channel, plus it sounds really powerful. So let's put on the punch setting and the dirt setting for a bit of saturation. Oh, well. Check context. Adjust the EQ a little bit. Okay, now let's do the same for the snare. Okay, see how in the context of the mix you constantly need to adjust things? This is the procedure, okay? You can't just put EQ, set the EQ, and then you're done. No. You constantly have to adjust everything. So, and that's pretty much what I'm doing right here. I don't know if I can call this part a tutorial rather than you're just following me as I mix this thing. Because there's really not much to say. I mean, the procedures, you can see all the procedures are basic stuff. It's just EQing, you know, this is basic stuff, and compression and parallel compression and okay, the parallel high-end thing is perhaps a bit more advanced-ish or whatever. All right, but I'm not fully done yet. I still want to do something to the snare, and I want to give it this saturator to top it all off. Now this tube saturator will give it a bit more crack, a bit more distortion, and a bit more power. And it really helps to give the snare its final touch.